After Moth and the police made it to the scene, Nicole ran back home where she got into bed straight away. Elaine heard her granddaughter enter and checked up on her, but she was already asleep, so she put a blanket on Nicole and closed the door. As Nicole drifted off into sleep, she felt a dark energy fill her body. She then found herself drifting on a wooden boat in a river in a dark forest. The trees had black leaves, and there were shadows that swayed around her. She stared around as the boat went down the river. After a few minutes, she was headed towards a white portal. She could not move at all and was helpless, so she crossed into this portal that led to a vast nothingness. The boat had disappeared, and she found herself floating through this blank space. Voices whispered to her as she drifted. Eventually, a woman appeared from nowhere. She was a beautiful Filipino woman with long hair, and her eyes glowed, and she wore a white flowing robe.
Meligan Pagating, Dalasay.
Where am I?
You have crossed over into the realm of shadows.
What's the realm of shadows?
The woman smiled.
Your time has not come, my child. I only put you here to warn you about the moon shadow. She is coming for you. Be wary of who you trust.
Wait, what does that mean?
The woman ignored her and got closer to Nicole and hugged her tight and close.
I love you, Dalasay, and I am proud of who you have become.
She then let go of Nicole. Nicole suddenly felt tears flow from her eyes. She didn't want to leave. She felt a connection to this strange woman. She tried to reach out for her again, but she felt herself being pulled back through the portal.
Please, let me stay. Let me stay. Please, I'm begging you.
She tried to use her abilities to avoid it, but they did not work. And that is when she woke up from her deep sleep. When she awoke, she began to sob uncontrollably and loudly. Elaine rushed into her room and hugged Nicole. Nicole had awoken 2 days after she first fell asleep, and she had fallen into a deep depression after her dream. She spent the next few days feeling hollow and moping around. Elaine was worried about her granddaughter. She was barely eating and had become like a zombie. Nicole didn't know why she was feeling the way she was feeling. Even if she were to seek professional help, she wasn't sure it would help. Every night that she got some sleep, her dreams were empty. She didn't feel joy or anger. She had no emotions or feelings. She had no thoughts in her head, and she just felt like a husk. Her memories were slowly disappearing every day, and she felt like a prisoner in her own body. She was desperate to fix the problem, but her body refused to let her leave her bed most of the time. This feeling would lead to an incident that would lead her down an interesting journey. One day at school, Nicole had trouble concentrating in class and started to lose consciousness. She tried to fight it, but she eventually passed out in the middle of class. The next thing she knew, she was lying by the riverbed in the dark forest from before. Her memories and body were intact once more. She stood up and examined her new surroundings. She looked for the wooden boat that she had drifted in earlier to get to the spirit world, but she could not find it. She decided to walk towards where she had found the edge of the river the last time she had been here. She traveled for miles with no end in sight. The river seemed to be never ending. She spent what felt like a day walking to no avail. Her abilities did not work in this forest, so she had to do this with her own 2 legs. She walked until her legs could not take it anymore. That is when she fell to her knees and cried out in agony. Suddenly, she heard a sultry female voice.
Don't cry, little one.
Who's that?
That is when a large crocodile with a wooden coffin fused to its back walked out of the bushes. Nicole was frightened at the sight of this beast. She slowly walked backward in fear.
Relax. I'm not here to hurt you.
His voice was soothing and made her feel safe.
Where am I?
You are on the path to the spirit world, little one.
Nicole paused.
Why can I not cross to the other side?
It's not your time yet, sweetie.
Nicole told the crocodile about her last dream and the mysterious woman she had seen when she crossed over previously.
That woman broke the rules by reaching out to you. That will never happen again. By letting you cross for even a few seconds, she facilitated the process of Kokomo, which is draining your life force. That's why you have been feeling empty.
Nicole could not process the information she had just digested. She was not even sure if this was all real or just another nightmare. The crocodile sat down and stared at Nicole. Nicole decided to play along with what was happening.
How do I stop Kokomo?
There's nothing more you can do, little one. There's someone in a high place that awaits your death.
Nicole was understandably upset with what she had just heard. She had been told that she was set to die, and there would be nothing she could do to stop it.
Please, there has to be something I can do.
No.
I don't want to die now.
Are you sure?
Excuse me?
I think you want to die. I can see it in your eyes. What's waiting for you back home? Why not just let go?
She contemplated what the crocodile said and walked away, heading towards the edge of the river once more. The crocodile followed and tried to tell her that she would never make it to the edge.
I am a buoya, by the way. A creature that is in charge of escorting dead souls to the spirit world.
Nicole ignored her again. The buoya then decided to use a different approach.
You need to stop this. Accept your fate, young one. You have no life, no real friends, and no identity. In the spirit world, you would have a better life, and you would see your real family again.
This caught Nicole off guard. She was still desperate to find the answers to her past. She looked back at the buoya.
Is my family really here?
Yes, darling.
Nicole was intrigued by this. She thought of her grandmother and all the people that still needed her help. But she also thought of how unhappy she was in her life. She had not felt real purpose in a long time. Maybe she would have a better life in the spirit world. Maybe she would be with her family and her people. She would be closer to her culture and roots. She would know her real name and where and when she was born. She would have a real birthday, and she would not feel like an imposter anymore. She smiled at the buoya and walked towards her.
Follow me, my child.
Suddenly, a wooden boat appeared behind her. She walked towards the boat, ready to go, when she realized something. She had not been allowed to leave the spirit world before, but suddenly she was allowed to go. It did not make sense to her.
What's waiting for me beyond the lake?
The buoya inched closer to her. Her tail suddenly whipped and threw Nicole into the boat. Nicole tried to get out of the boat, but it started to move with her in it. She frantically tried to get out of the boat, but it was too late.
Don't fight it, little one.
Nicole closed her eyes and tried her hardest to tap into her abilities, but could not find it in herself to do so. She concentrated as hard as she could, but nothing happened. Time was running out for her, as she could see the portal on the horizon. It was in that moment of desperation that she realized that she did want to live. She had been moping around that house, wallowing in self-pity and shutting out everyone out of her own grief and guilt, and spent her life searching for a family that she had lost when she already had one that loved her dearly. She had lost her whole life looking for a life and a world that might not even exist for her anymore. She slowly sat down in the boat as it reached the portal. She didn't have long now. Instead of giving up, she focused all of her energy on her life, and suddenly her eyes started to glow. Her abilities were working again. She stood up and burst out of the boat before it reached the portal, and then ran to the riverbed, where she sat down in exhaustion. Suddenly, the buaya made it out of the forest with a smile on her long, toothy face. Nicole was ready to fight this giant beast.
You have passed your trial.
Nicole was confused.
This whole experience has been a trial to show you what you truly desire. We all need to know if you're ready to face the moon shadow.
This is exactly what Dr. Mendoza had told her about. Maybe she had to start taking this threat seriously. Still, she didn't trust the buaya. Nicole's eyes started to glow as her right hand started to emit energy. She pointed her hand at the buaya and asked her what Mayari wanted from her. Buaya walked backward into the forest and disappeared. Nicole inched closer to the beast with the intent of torturing her like she did the vampire. Instead, she was met by the buaya's tail and got launched backwards. Nicole then focused her energy and blasted the buaya and launched it into the forest. Nicole ran to the forest in search of the creature. While she was looking, she heard a child crying in the distance. Nicole's heroic instincts immediately set in as she rushed to the child. She found a little boy wearing traditional Filipino clothes, hunched in the forest.
What's wrong?
That was when the boy jumped up and bit Nicole on the arm. Nicole jumped back in shock. Little boy then manifested wings, fangs, and sharp claws and lunged at her. Nicole used her super speed to dodge and attack the creature, but her attacks had no effect on it. It was determined to suck her blood, so she had to find a way to distract the creature before she became lunch. Nicole ran deep into the forest, where she was sure that the creature would not find her. She looked around at the surroundings, and all she could see was a vast multitude of dark trees with black leaves. The atmosphere was very dead and made her feel uncomfortable, and it was draining her of energy. She had to find her way out of this jungle, otherwise she would be stuck here forever. These nightmares or visions had become more and more realistic. She was not sure if it was all real. This new dark environment had felt like a representation of everything she had been feeling for years. The darkness that had been consuming her finally had a physical representation. She could not remember what happened to her before she slipped into this dream. She was certain she had fallen asleep. It was the logical inference. All this talk of death and souls had clouded her ability to think. Nicole theorized that all her repressed memories of her life before she was found by the Haddon family had been manifesting themselves in these dreams. But at the same time, it also made sense to her that these were not really dreams. Maybe these were real things happening in another dimension of sorts. She had seen much weirder. In fact, with all her abilities, who was she to act like what was happening was out of this world? As all these thoughts swirled around her mind, she was vigilantly looking out for anything that would want to get to her. She then heard ruffling in the bushes. She started to emit light from her hand as she waited patiently for the creature to walk through those bushes. But she recognized the snout that had just peered through the bushes. It was the buaya. She looked at Nicole as she got closer.
Don't get any closer!
She seemed to want to tell her something.
I said don't get any closer!
It inched
To her.
Relax, little one.
Nicole did not let up.
The creature you have encountered is an ancient malevolent spirit that uses the form of children to draw weary travelers in. It wants to suck your blood.
Nicole was not sure why the buaya had sought her to relay this information, She did not trust her at all. Nicole was sure that the buaya had something to do with all of this.
Why do you keep showing up? What's going on?
You have to trust me if you want to get out of here, sweetie. The creature is sensitive to intense light.
Nicole was apprehensive and did not want to trust buaya. She had no choice but to believe the great crocodile with a pinch of salt. Nicole was tired of being a victim. She wanted to attack this creature head on. She had to prove to herself that she was strong enough to tackle this creature. She closed her eyes, as she always did, and concentrated her energy intensely. She then ran through the forest in search of the creature until she finally found it. She stood firm in front of it. The creature examined her stance and got closer to her. Nicole's eyes started to glow as everything around her stood still. She ran circles around the creature. She was building up heat and light in her body. She then simply stood still right in front of the creature and held out her right arm. The creature did not hesitate to jump on her, and it took a bite of her hand. This is when Nicole's body emitted light at great intensity. The light started to burn the creature's face. It detached its teeth and fell to the ground. It touched its face in pain. Nicole then focused all the energy she had accumulated straight at the creature, burning it to a crisp, and eventually killing it. Nicole stared at its charred and lifeless body. She had done it. She had overcome the foul creature, and she was ready to head home to her grandmother. Buaya appeared behind her from the bushes.
Well done, young one.
Nicole turned her attention to the crocodile and gave her an intense stare. The buaya smiled.
Be on guard for what is to come, and remember to be careful of who you trust.
Before Nicole could ask for information, she started to hear a beep in the distance, and was also overcome with the smells of a hospital. Suddenly, a bright light engulfed Nicole, and she found herself awake in a hospital bed attached to monitors. She jerked in her bed in fear and confusion. That is when Scott appeared from her right and calmed her down as he called for the doctor. Nicole stared at Scott and knew she had woken up from her coma. That is when the memories started to flood back as doctors subdued her and checked all her vitals. Nicole asked what was happening. Scott told Nicole that she had been in a coma for 2 months.